Start?
Okay, go.
All right. Okay, so welcome everyone. We are going to go over a few things tonight. So it's going to be an overview of winter and seasonal health in Chinese medicine. We're also going to talk about immune boosting, and also at the end we're going to talk a bit about COVID, treatment of COVID symptoms, prevention, recovery, and long hauler syndrome. And just to state at the end, if you have questions, we are going to refrain from a vaccine debate. I'll just put it out there now that I do advise getting vaccinated, but I'm not going to debate vaccines tonight. So just if you have those questions, you could keep it amongst yourselves. And we're going to begin. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to pull this up here. So just to start with, the overview of what we call Yang Shen. So it is this idea that it's this art of nourishing life. And so we do this through, hold on, I'm just getting a little technical difficulties. Here we go. So this idea of like preparing through lifestyle, dietary changes, and emotional awareness. And we do that through seasonal health, as well as Qigong, diet, sleep, meditation, and basically living in accordance with the cycles of nature. Chinese medicine was developed thousands of years ago by observing the subtle changes in nature and the beautiful cyclical changes in the seasons. So it teaches us that by living in harmony with nature, we are in fact in greater harmony with ourselves and our bodies. So through understanding the changes that occur within each season, we can prepare ourselves and strengthen our physical and emotional health. So, you know, when we talk about boosting immune system, it's not really as simple as supplements, diet, things like that. It's first we're going to learn about the why and winter and Chinese medicine. Okay, so the overview of winter. So each season is correlated with a different organ channel in Chinese medicine. So every organ system in Chinese medicine has a yin organ and a yang organ that's like a partner or couple. So in Chinese medicine, the kidney is the season of winter, is the organ of winter. And its yin couple is the heart, and its yang couple is the urinary bladder. So we're going to focus a lot on the kidney, and we're going to learn a lot about why it's really important in winter health in Chinese medicine. And then through that, we're going to get into immune boosting and everything else. So every season and element in Chinese medicine has specifics. So we have the element is water, the color is black, the nature is yin. The kidney is the organ and the bladder is the organs. The emotion is fear. The direction is north. Flavor is salty. So it's not that like winter is salty, but this is the flavor of the kidney. When the kidneys are out of balance, it craves salt. The tissues it's associated with is bones. The sense organ are ears, and the time is 5 to 7 a.m. So what does that mean? There's this clock. That's the Chinese medicine clock, and every 2 hours correlates to a different organ channel. So a lot of times if someone wakes up at the same time every night, then that might mean that something associated with that organ is a little out of balance. So water is the most yin of all the 5 elements. So the organ system associated with water are kidney, yin, and urinary bladder, yang, which rule the water metabolism and maintain homeostasis in the body. So if we think about the Earth's surface is 75% water, our bodies are made of 60% water, and yet, water takes no shape or form, and it's really about the container that it's in. So it's mutable and can become as solid as ice or as light as vapor. It can break even the hardest rock over time and find the path of least resistance around any obstacle. So it's very strong and it has this incredible energy to it and power to it. So more on the water element. Water is yin within yin, and so is the kidney. So kidney is yin within yin. The substance, so what is yin? So this is really important. And we're going to give like basic foundation of Chinese medicine, and some of it might, go over your head. Please feel free to ask questions, but that's just sort of the basic understanding of why yin and kidney is so important in with the winter in Chinese medicine. So yin within yin. So yin is the substance that flows with the blood and moistens the body. So when a woman goes through menopause, we're usually treating the yin. There's usually mostly an element of kidney yin, some kidney yang, some kidney qi. But a lot of times, like for example, I have a patient that came in a few weeks ago. She had severe hot flashes. She didn't want to take hormone replacement therapy. I get these patients a lot. And the main formula I gave her, we had to do diagnosis, and according to her tongue and her pulse and her whole diagnosis, it was a formula that strongly nourishes the yin and clears this deficient heat, which causes these hot flashes that wakes her up in the middle of the night. So it worked almost immediately, and she's doing incredibly better. So what happens in menopause is we start to lose the yin, the moist that moistens, that flows with the blood and moistens the body. So yin is also darkness, cold, stillness, the feminine, the moon, inward energy that holds and nourishes. And for us, this is a very real substance. This is like science to us. So in the winter, this is the time of the yin. And so it's an important energy as well. We're going to go more into it. So the water kidneys, kidneys in Chinese medicine, it's an organ, but it's an organ channel, and it has this specific energy to it. So it stores the essence, which is like our essence, what we're born with, that gives us life, governs birth, reproduction, development. It produces the bone marrow and fills the brain. It governs water, controls the reception of qi, so like taking in qi, which is life force, qi, opens in the ears and manifests in the hair, controls the lower orifices, and controls the gate of vitality or Mingmen, which I'm going to go more into. Okay. So next we're going to go into mind. So we're getting Chinese medicine, we're the whole like mind, body, spirit thing that kind of got popular in the early 21st century. This is to us, it's all completely interconnected, and there's no disconnection really between that. So I am going to disconnect it in this talk. So we're going to go into the mind, the body, and the spirit. But in Chinese medicine, there really is no disconnection. So it's kind of understood that too much of an emotion can damage an organ channel just as much as, a really unhealthy lifestyle. And then there's like the chicken and the egg, where if the organ channel is damaged too much, then it's really easy for an abundance of that imbalanced emotion to happen. Okay. So in Chinese medicine, the kidneys are associated with fear. And fear is not always an unhealthy emotion. It's really an important emotion. And I think that in the society that we live in, it's not really celebrated as much as it should, but there's healthy fear and then there's unhealthy fear. So fear is important. We need it to regulate our life's choices. So if we don't have fear, then, we might be one of those like extreme sports people and then, go and jump off like a cliff or something like that and end up, not in good shape. So having healthy fear is important. It helps us make important choices in our life. But when fear is out of balance, it can damage the kidneys as much as lifestyle choices. So also facing and moving through fear is really important as well. So if we look at indigenous cultures traditionally around the world, or those who become medicine healers, medicine men or women, they have to go through ceremony. And for teenagers to become warriors, they have to go through different ceremonies, diets with plants, be alone in the middle of the jungle, and they need to deal with themselves and facing fear. And this is usually part of most traditional cultures. My background is in anthropology, so I'm very into that stuff. So with fear, facing fear is very important. Letting it go, going through it. In modern society, we tend to have so much fear. We're fed fear, and we tend to push aside that fear, or we get stuck inside of it. So a really good analogy is ice. So when water freezes, fear is the contraction away from the infinite into the ego in a way that actually freezes potential. So if you think about maybe life choices you've made in your life, or haven't. So sometimes it can create obstacles that don't allow us to move through onto maybe something that is meant for us, or this potential, and it can get in the way. So like I use myself as an example. When I was going through this, I was thinking about, I used to practice and live in Buenos Aires. I had a thriving practice there. After a few years, I felt like it wasn't really the place for my family to live anymore. But it was security, and I was giving that up, and jumping into, we moved back to the United States, starting completely from scratch. And I had to kind of push through that fear that it wasn't going to work out, or because, we literally started from scratch when we moved here. So I dove in and fought the fears, and and looking back, I couldn't imagine the potential of what is here right now. So it's a really important emotion sometimes to sit with and kind of push through, move through, but also that it's healthy that we have it, but it's a matter of balance. So another really important aspect of fear is courage, because it is the opposite. So when emotions are out of balance, they cause issues in the body. So the opposite of fear is willpower. And we're going to go even deeper into this when we talk about spirit. So willpower is what drives us. It's the force behind our will, our ability to move through life and slay. So I always think of the Jedi warrior. Cultivating strong willpower and courage is the way of any ninja. So the cultivation of strong essence, or courage, is part of the training to not allow fear to penetrate, and instead courage. And when fear takes over, we also see a lot of depression, which also takes away our willpower. And this is a common emotion in the winter. So each season we see manifestations physically and emotionally of the energy and the substance of the season. So autumn is about lung, and also about grief. So autumn is when, you start to see a lot more respiratory illnesses, and we just see a lot more respiratory issues. And then there's grief as well. So for us, the two are very interconnected, because there's no disconnection between the emotion and the physical. So in winter, depression, anxiety, coming out of fear. So a major thing that I treat in my clinic is emotional health. I treat a lot of depression, anxiety, and Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and herbal medicine is wonderful at treating this. And it's really important to, in Chinese medicine, how you sit and go through each season is incredibly important for the health of the next season. So it's all about sort of diving into the emotion and the physical of the season you're in. You're actually supposed to prepare for it before, and then it prepares you for the season ahead. So it's like this longevity idea, and constantly being within this notion of the yang shen, which is the nourishing art of nourishing life. So through each season. So in winter, when we might be experiencing a lot of fear, it's a really good time to do meditation, to really do inward sort of work. Acupuncture is wonderful if you have access to that, and just talk therapy as well. So in Chinese medicine, the yin partner of kidney is the heart. So the heart, there's actually a pattern of heart-kidney disconnect that we see that's actually like treatable with acupuncture and herbs. And it's one of, when we see that, there's a lot of extreme anxiety, insomnia, and depression. How's everyone doing? Good. So, all right. So the next aspect is the body. So we're going to go into more of the physical manifestations of the kidney and talk a little bit more about that. So kidney function in Chinese medicine. So it stores the essence, and to us, this is science. This is like tried and true for 3,000 plus years. There's, texts that date back thousands of years, specific herbal formulas around all this stuff. And I've seen it in clinical practice for over almost the past decade that I've been in private practice. So kidney function, so it stores essence, and which governs birth, growth, reproduction, development, and aging. Nourishes and produces bone marrow and fills the brain. Controls bones and helps govern the water metabolism in our body. Controls the reception of qi. And so when someone has a hard ability to receive qi with the lungs, asthma is a good example of this. The kidneys can't receive and grasp the qi. So we usually treat the lungs, but we're also treating the kidneys. Opens in the ears. So if we see like tinnitus or hearing issues, we're always treating the kidneys. And manifests in the hair. So like, somebody who starts graying in their 20s, there's usually an element of kidney qi deficiency or yin or yang. So the Ming Men fire. So this is something that is real and exists in Chinese medicine that definitely does not exist in Western medicine. It's almost like the hearth of the body. And it exists in the middle of the lower back, almost like in between the two kidneys. So if you picture this sort of like glowing hearth, it's an essential part of traditional Chinese medicine physiology. It's called the gate of life. It holds the genuine yin and yang of the body, from which all substances and functions develop from and depend on. So it's pretty serious. And traditional medicine and energy cultivation practices help nourish the Ming Men and what we call the three treasures. So the three treasures is Jing, which is like the essence that you're born with, that in Asian culture is constantly being nourished. So it's sort of, this concept is understood in Asian culture. And it's, it's something that is part of the food. It is part of the practices when a woman gives birth. I'm going to go a little bit more into that. So Jing, and then Qi, and then Shen. So there's the 5 spirits, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Qi, which is like the energy of the body. So Ming Men and the concepts of Jing and Qi are primary. So this is a big part of the kidney Qi to us, is this Ming Men fire. And we're constantly trying to nourish it and feed it and not have it die out. Okay. My computer's stuck now. Hold on. There we go. So back to the Jing. So it's the most fundamental substance of the body. So it's stored in the kidneys, governs growth, development, reproduction, as well as functioning as the deepest level of energy reserve. So it's sort of understood, if you have to drink 5 cups of coffee a day, you're kind of like taking from these reserves. When it is mobilized for use, it can be divided functionally into kidney yin and yang. So there's the yin and the yang. So the yin is like the feminine, the yang is like the masculine. and the kidney yin and yang nourish the yin and yang of all the other organs in the body. So the kidneys are really important, and the Jing and the Mingmen fire. So they're sort of like the mother of it all. Um, Jing generates qi. Jing has everything to do with aging. So as we age, there are acupuncture points, there are formulas and lifestyle practice. And this is a big part of Chinese medicine. So how we can deplete Jing, kidney Jing, is by the following and accelerate aging. Rockstar Life, which is good for no one, was fun maybe when you're in your 20s, but it does accelerate aging. So that's like late night partying and, think of Keith. We always would joke in Chinese medicine school that Keith Richards had an abundance of Jing because he was able to just be him, and somehow he's still alive. So night shifts, so I have a lot of nurses in my practice that work night shifts, and they get used to it, but it's really depleting for the kidney Jing. Overworking, over exercise, which a lot of, in American culture is considered healthy, but in Chinese medicine, it's really depleting, especially for women. Not taking care of yourself after having a baby. This is something that I wish more people knew about. And I try to teach in my practice that the first 40 days after a woman gives birth, it's understood in Asian culture that this is a time when your hormones can reset, and it actually can affect how you go through menopause, which is, a pretty bold statement, but it actually does. And it affects your, if you, secondary infertility, hormonal imbalances, and then ultimately menopause. So it's really an important time where women in Asian culture and through Chinese medicine, they eat specific foods, take specific formulas, soups, rest. If you lived in various places in Asia, there's people whose jobs it is to come to your house and do this for you and take care of you. I did this with my first son. With my second son, it was a little harder because I had a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, but I did my best. And so there are specific formulas that help regenerate blood, help with that really help prevent postpartum depression, and nourishing the milk, and just basically helping you recover. And so this does, taking care of yourself during this time is understood that it can really affect how you age, which is pretty interesting. So eating a cold diet, if you're my patient, you've heard this from me, how eating a cold diet, especially as a woman, can really negatively affect you. So it's very opposite of, modern Western healthy nutrition. We're very much not into juice cleanses or waking up and having a smoothie or eating too much yogurt or salad or ice beverages. In Chinese medicine, the spleen is a cold, wet organ, and it is easily damaged if it has too much cold raw food. So in Asia, you wouldn't really see people wake up and have a smoothie or ever do a juice cleanse. That would never happen, or have an ice beverage. So this can really affect gynecological issues and just overall aging, because too much cold and damp in the body over time can contribute to weakening of the kidneys as well. Okay. Other imbalances with urinary bladder and kidney is urinary bladder issues of all kinds, accelerated aging, brain function, nervous system, Alzheimer's, dementia, dizziness, headaches, migraines, Parkinson's, stroke, infertility, which is something I treat regularly. We're always treating the kidneys. So it's understood that you need strong kidney qi and Jing to create new life. And so this is something that, we're always treating. So kidney qi is with infertility. It's the fundamental energy that contributes to growth and development. Strong kidney chi is very important for this. And when we see low egg or sperm quality, there's always a component of low kidney chi, kidney yin or yang, or both. So depending on the person's diagnosis, I give herbs in accordance with that. Also, some people are just born with less kidney chi, and others are born with more. This is called prenatal chi. Those born with a lot less, we see developmental delays and infertility and premature aging. And things that can damage our kidney chi and water element. So all this is really important for boosting your immune system in the winter. So since this is the time of the kidney, it's, this is when we have to take extra care. So anything in excess, so drugs, alcohol, exercise, emotions, work, anything in excess, really, that's like too much on the body. Too much salt, not enough water, too many consecutive pregnancies can really damage the kidney chi. So when a patient has like multiple miscarriages, I usually try to have them just try to stop trying for a little bit and work on what I call the fertile soil, because the more miscarriages, sometimes it could damage the kidney chi even more. And then, sorry, men, if there's men in the audience, too much ejaculation, kidney jing is let go when a man ejaculates. This is true. Women don't have that problem. So sorry, guys. So we're going to go back to that. So we're going to move on. Anyone have any questions so far? Good. So spirit. So this is pretty interesting. So there's five spirits in Chinese medicine. So it's a little different from the idea of like spirit in the West. They're very specific spirits. So we have the Shen, which is like the mind. It resides in the heart. The Po, which resides in the lungs, and it comes from our first breath and it leaves on our last breath. And it really has to do with our instincts. And the Yi, which is thought, and it resides in the spleen, so our intellect. And then the Hun, which is the ethereal soul, which is kind of close to what in the West we think of as soul or spirit. And that actually goes and wanders supposedly in the night when we're dreaming. It goes and wanders off and then comes back. And then the Zhi, which is willpower. So the Zhi resides in the kidneys. So it's actually seen as like one of the five spirits is our willpower. It's like to complete our destiny, our potential, like what we came to this earth for. So abundant reserves within gives us courage and strength of will. Lacking these reserves will manifest the emotion. So linked to the kidneys, the will is the involvement of the water chi in the building and functioning of awareness and of the mind. For the will, the relationship with the origin is crucial. Like the spark of energy sending the sap from the root up to the top of the tree and to the tip of the furthermost leaves in order to allow its growth. The will rooted in the original nature drives everything within us to its blooming expansion. So if that makes sense, it's sort of like what we came to this earth with and why, and then this blooming expansion is like our utmost potential. And that's what our will is here for. Okay, just going to skip over some of these. Okay, so again with spirit and just this idea of water and kidney in Chinese medicine. So the idea is really to be like water. If you've read any I Ching or Tao Te Ching, Taoism, water, the idea of water is used a lot. Water is one of the strongest forces of nature. It can penetrate even the hardest ground and change the form of stone. So softness, strength, and resilience within the softness, to go with the flow, to let go of resistance. So these sorts of general themes during the winter to be in a place of softness and letting go and just like thinking about how water is. So the spirit of winter, stillness and quiet. And we've all felt, especially if you've been in the Northeast in a snowstorm. After a snowstorm, it's like so quiet and so still, and everything just feels, it's kind of magical in that way, that it feels so incredibly still. So this is really the energetic and the spirit of winter. So it's the chance to go within and retreat. This gives us an opportunity to do that. It's a time of introspection, time of deep thought, and when dreams can grow and then come to fruition in the spring. So now we're going to get into boosting our immune system. So the key elements we're going to talk about are our relationship with nature and lifestyle, food therapy, and herbs, supplements, and acupuncture. So our relationship with nature and lifestyle. So when preparing the body for winter in Chinese medicine, we have to look at our relationship with nature. Winter can cause us to contract emotionally and physically. When we find a softness with nature itself and adapting to it, we find our physical and emotional well-being more in balance. To nourish yin and protect yang, we must restore and regenerate yin to stay warm to protect yang. So, a lot of times when winter starts or during it, there's a lot of people who just don't want to go outside. I highly recommend going outside. So there's no bad weather, just bad clothing. So staying warm is important, so layers. I just invested in some smart wool. There's all kinds of nice little layers you can get. Go outside. It is an amazing way to embrace winter and really like adapting to it. So adapting to the cold weather and being outside, becoming connected with nature through being with nature. This is common practice in the winter in many cold countries. Like if you've heard anything about Sweden, I think they have their babies napping outside. So it's really about just trying to connect and go outside as much as you can. It really helps you adapt, but definitely wear some warm clothing. So this actually helps the yang qi stay stronger. So, and this is very important because the stronger the yang qi, so the yin is the kidney, and we're very yin right now, but the yang gets weaker during winter. So we want to get the yang qi to stay stronger. So we kind of have to just connect with this moment and the elements outside, and it just helps adapting. When the body is adapting, this helps a lot. Hydration is incredibly important. Staying hydrated, ideally with warm fluid, to help counteract the cold, dry air. Specific times, according to TCM, to traditional Chinese medicine, that's what TCM stands for, is upon waking, we should drink warm water. 5 p.m. specifically to nourish the kidney yin, and then 9 p.m. to nourish the heart yin. So if you really want to go for it with the Yang Shen practice, waking 5 p.m., 9 p.m., have some tea. And this will also help with sleeping and regenerating fluids during the evening. So sleep. This is a very important thing in lifestyle for the winter. So according to the Huangdi Neijing, which is basically the Bible of Chinese medicine, it is recommended to sleep early and rise late in the winter, and not to rise before the light of dawn. So ideally try to sleep as much as you can, and don't worry about waking up at 4:30, 5 in the morning, if you could avoid it. Of course, if you have to work, that's a different story. Sleep is one of our best ways to strengthen the kidney qi and regenerate qi, which impacts our wei qi, aka our immune system. So the wei qi, so there's all these different qis and all these different spirits, but the wei qi is the defense qi. So the defense qi is our immune system. but it's kind of understood in Chinese medicine as this sort of like armor that resides on the skin. And if you have strong Wei Qi, a virus might get to you. It might not penetrate, but if it does, your body can fight it off really strong. And there are herbs, which I'm going to talk about, that can help with that. So, with COVID, because it's hard to avoid not talking about COVID, and we're going to talk about it. I definitely, there's a typo, sorry. I definitely advocate getting vaccinated and ideally boosted by now if you're not, to protect against the new variant. But acupuncture, herbal medicine, and supplements can be a significant protector against breakthrough cases. So just to start with, there's a formula called Yuping Feng San. It's otherwise known as the jade windscreen. So if you can imagine this like piece of jade is acting instead of like a windscreen that you would have on your window that just lets the wind in. So we look at viruses were looked at as evil wind, like back in the day, like a couple thousand years ago. And so the windscreen, if it's made of jade, it'll protect the viruses from coming in. But what this formula actually does, so there's an herb in it, a lot of people might know, it's called astragalus, it's become kind of popular. It works even better when it's in a formula. So on its own, it's great, but when it's with these other herbs, it is so much stronger. And this formula specifically is just like an amazing formula for boosting your immune system. So we also use this formula if you know that you're going to have a really bad allergy season. So say like a lot of people get allergies in April or May. So you start taking this formula a few months before, and it just helps build up to fight against that. So it's a great formula. We can't say it's like you're not going to get COVID. You might still get it, even if you're vaccinated and take this formula, but it will help the body protect, to fight it. And then we're going to talk about we're going to go a little bit more into the COVID stuff too. So other supplements that I recommend are vitamin D, vitamin C, magnesium, and a good probiotic. I'm also a really big fan of medicinal mushrooms. So there's a whole bunch. We have in our office, we have a lot of different mixes, but shaga and reishi, there's a bunch of different kinds of mushrooms that are really good for immune boosting. Now we're going to go into a little bit of acupuncture. So these points, you can do at home and do acupressure. Of course, if you get acupuncture on them, they're much stronger because the acupuncture needle creates like an immediate immune response, and it works on more of a cellular level, and it's very strong. So acupuncture has been significantly proven to boost the immune system. So in general, acupuncture lowers inflammation, increases white blood cells and T cells, lowers stress, and increases optimal health. One specific, this is my favorite point for immune boosting, is stomach 36. So it's a point that's actually been researched. It is used a lot in cancer treatment because it boosts the white blood cells, and it strongly increases your immune system. So its actions, one of the most powerful points for boosting immunity, tonifies whole body qi and blood, and strengthens the protective Wei Qi, the defense qi in particular. Builds the body's energy reserves and relieves fatigue, tones the muscles, and aids digestion. So it's like kind of a straight shot to the gut. It's a very strong gut point, but it also strongly increases your immune system. And it's usually when that people tend to feel this one. When people ask if acupuncture hurts, it doesn't really hurt. You don't really feel the needle. But sometimes what you feel is the qi, which is like a dull, achy sensation. And typically you don't really feel it that much, but on this point, you kind of want to feel something because that means it's like really working. Um, so this point is on the lateral side of the leg. And if you go just below the kneecap, we call it 3 body soon. So like just below, a little like 3 body inches below, and you start feeling around and you press, you'll feel like a little achiness. So the next acupuncture point that's used a lot for boosting immune system and colds and sickness is large intestine 4. People know this as the headache point. It actually does stop headaches, and it is the command point for the head. So this point, it releases exterior. So when we say it releases the exterior, this is like, it's releasing like the colds and the viruses and stuff like that. And it treats wind conditions. So there's internal wind and there's external wind. So the external wind is like viruses. Internal wind kind of has to do more with stroke. So colds and flus, fever, chills, runny nose, congestion, headache, and sore throat, dizziness, etc. Problem is that I won't treat you in the office if you have any of those symptoms. So if you do, just do it at home. So this point here. So if you have those symptoms, once they go away, negative COVID test, you can come back in. So it's a powerful anti-inflammatory point and relieves pain, moves qi, and is has a calming analgesic effect. And then this point we cannot do if you're pregnant until you're ready to have the baby. So this is actually a point used to help with cervical ripening. So until you're 36 weeks, we won't do that point on you. The next point is lung 7, which is another wonderful point for just lung pathology, and it helps circulate the lung qi. So it's typically used for colds and flus and stuff like that, and to help with viruses. And then interestingly enough, treats grief and sadness, which can weaken the lungs. So, but in general, acupuncture just has an incredible, anti-inflammatory and immune boosting ability to it. It's kind of its side effect almost. So winter immune boosting tips. So go to bed early, meditate, really good time to start a meditation practice. Retreat, so whatever that means to you. So that might mean just like laying in your bed all day or going on a retreat. Eat warm food, please eat warm food. Okay, everyone, please eat warm food. Don't eat salad for dinner unless it's really hot out, and especially in the winter. And try to, not have ice beverages. And, New Year's cleanses, like stay away from the juice cleanses. Do a soup cleanse if you really want to cleanse. Stoke the inner fire, find your joy focuses, and focus on self-care. It's really a good time. Like we have to think about the hearth and how, what stokes that. So finding the joy, finding things in your life that really bring you joy and peace as well. So it's a really important time to like go inward, but in a way that doesn't have to always be, meditative. Could also be, what's fun for you and what are things that really make you happy. So also get acupuncture tune-ups. I'm biased, but it does really help for just maintaining your health, mental health and physical health. And I know during the winter, a lot of people have issues with mental health because it's just, we're lack of vitamin D. It's not sunny outside, it's freezing. We're spending a lot of time inside. So it's a really good time to get acupuncture. So I'm going to just, before I get into this, into the COVID stuff, we're going to just jump back into food really quick. Okay. And I guess I have to, oops, sorry guys. Okay. So food therapy. So very important part of Chinese medicine. the herbs are incredibly important, but food is medicinal. So foods that nourish the kidney and the water element. So again, food should be cooked. We should refrain from eating cold and raw foods during the winter months, since our bodies are at a colder temperature internally and externally. Cold can also damage the spleen in Chinese medicine and the kidneys. So best things are like stews, soups, roasts, steamed greens, oatmeal, things like that. Specific foods that have kidney nourishing properties: bone broth, celery, yeah. So celery, put in your soup. Alfalfa, asparagus, small dark beans, black beans, anything black in nature, in food wise, nourishes the kidneys in Chinese medicine. Roasted nuts, steamed winter greens, lamb, and other game meats like venison and beef are seen as medicinal. Lamb is actually the warmest food that there is, so it's advised to eat, if you're going to eat lamb, to eat it in the winter. Quinoa, so these are some grains: quinoa, rye, barley, amaranth, and millet are all said to nourish the kidneys, and then microalgae and seaweeds. And then as for more vegetables, watercress, endives, escarole, and turnips. And then herbs, there's so many formulas that nourish the kidneys, but this is really something to be prescribed by an herbalist. But one of the strongest herbs that's in some kidney tonics is futsa, which is known as aconite. And it really, it strongly nourishes the kidneys. It's a really interesting herb. So there's, it depends on the kidney yin, the kidney yang, the kidney qi. And again, that's really should be prescribed by an herbalist. Okay, so now we're going to go down to the COVID stuff. So, so I've been treating COVID since the beginning. I was doing virtual treatments. I'm still doing virtual treatments, and it's all herbal medicine. And it's pretty amazing because I've, in the beginning, I was learning a lot. I'm still learning a lot, but a lot of the formulas that we use, so there's probably like about 5 to 10 that we use to treat COVID, depending on the signs and the symptoms. And this is treating COVID symptoms. Ideally treated within the first week. After that, it doesn't work as well. So we were learning from, our colleagues in China, and then treatment of viruses and pandemics has been part of Chinese medicine for thousands of years. So there's actually there's a whole school of study thought called the Shanhanlun and the Wenbing, and the Shanhanlun is actually, it's been around for a couple thousand years, the treatise of cold disease. So there's this understanding of infection and these 5 different layers, and where the virus or infection gets stuck, and there's different formulas. So it's we already kind of knew the different stages of COVID. And when COVID first started, I already had I had 5 different formulas in my house, and the last one was for the end stage for the blood clotting and vessel disease. So we already kind of knew about that. Because also in China, they have been treating it in the hospitals with herbs and Western medicine. So they do both integratively. And so they do that a lot with also when you have a stroke. So when you have a stroke in China, it's typical not to become bedridden, because they do intravenous Chinese medicine herbs that move the blood. So we don't have that here. But what's really interesting is one formula that's really common, called Qingfei Baidu-san. Qingfei Baidu-san, or Baidu Tang, is it's a modified formula. So that means you don't just go out and buy this formula. If anyone gets COVID, please contact an herbalist. Doesn't have to be, but definitely talk to someone who is an herbalist, because it really depends on your own signs and symptoms. But because of the way that the scientific method is and how medical studies are, they can't study it in that way, and it has to be, they're studying one formula. So they're using, so there's an FDA approved trial that's going on, still ongoing at UCLA Medical, and I have colleagues involved in it. And they're using a specific formula. So it's the 21 herb formula. It's a modified Qing Fei Baidu Tang. So it's a multi-centered, randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trial, which is a really big deal for me, who's I've been in this field for I think about 16 years. So, and it's really exciting to see that this formula is being trialed because it really helps. So these, these are for outpatients, mild to moderate symptoms. Again, first week, ideally. So the study aims to establish the safety and feasibility of the use of modified Qing Fei Baidu Tang versus placebo in 66 subjects. So I can't even say that word right now. Trials will evaluate other other therapeutics as well. So they're also going to be studying mushrooms for recovery, because there's a lot with that, as well as the efficacy of modified Qing Fei Baidu Tang in a larger study population. So in my own experience, which has been really interesting, I'm just going to go down here, treating a lot of COVID symptoms and cases. I think it's stuck. That, knock on wood, like none of my patients ended up in the hospital or have had long hauler syndrome, which I know is a really bold statement to say, but that's why they're studying this formula, because it's really helping. Do I still recommend getting vaccinated? Yes. But if there's a breakthrough case, Chinese herbs has been treating COVID for thousands of years, not COVID, pandemics for thousands of years, and we understand the nature of viruses. So, the way these formulas are designed are absolutely incredible, because it's treating the virus itself, it's treating the lungs, it's treating the phlegm, it's treating the how the body just gets depleted. There's all these different aspects, and Qing Fei Baidu Tang has 21 herbs in it. So there's a lot going on in there, and there's viruses that are more hot in nature. There's viruses that are more cold in nature. There's viruses that are more damp in nature. There's viruses that are more dry in nature. So again, like it really depends on the virus and depends on the patient. So I don't give all the patients this specific formula. There's other formulas that I also prescribe. I think somebody has a can they help long hauler syndrome if patients have not received acupuncture? Yes, so I'm going to talk about long hauler syndrome in a minute. So long hauler syndrome. So next slide. So I've been treating that a lot. I've seen weird cases. So whenever I speak to someone who's like a little vaccine hesitant, they're like, oh, COVID's not a big deal. I'm not going to die from it. No, but you might get long hauler syndrome. So, I don't even know where to begin. I've seen really young patients with debilitating issues of, accelerated heart rate, extreme fatigue where they can't work anymore, people who are otherwise super healthy and young, like in their early 20s, teenagers who every single food smelled rotten to them and they couldn't eat. People who lost sense of taste and smell. So we just had a great case. She lost sense of taste and smell for 9 months. And after 3 sessions, she came 3 times. And then so ideally you're supposed to, with long hauler, I always tell everyone to come at least 2 times a week. So she had to go to California. She got on the plane and she had like, I think in her bag, she just like found like some peppermint essential oil or something. And she opened it up and she was able to smell it. And she screamed because she couldn't believe that she could smell it again. So her smell is slowly coming back. So, but then I have patients who have had extreme digestive issues, again with fatigue, body aches, shortness of breath, anxiety, heart rate, all kinds of stuff. Usually I treat it as neurological. So I do a lot of scalp acupuncture, which treats neurological issues, because when the smell and the taste are involved, it's your neurological system. And with a lot of long hauler cases, there's neurological issues involved. So I do a lot of scalp acupuncture. And then for certain cases, I also do herbs. But it's usually a longer, it doesn't always get resolved as quickly as that woman. She's still coming back because she wants it to completely resolve, but it's, like I said here, it's rigorous treatment, usually at least 2 times a week, and herbal formulas. And usually it's like over at least a few months. And I think that's it. I think I covered it all. So any questions? I'm happy to take any questions.